You know, some moments in history are like a fault line. They just split time into a before and an after. Today, we're digging into one of those moments, this incredible chain reaction that kicked off with an attack and ended with the birth of a whole new global superpower. So let's unpack exactly how it all went down.
A date which will live in infamy. Just let those words sink in. Spoken by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, they didn't just describe a moment, they pretty much defined it. You could almost feel the shock, the betrayal that just galvanized an entire nation. But more importantly, those words set in motion everything that was about to happen next.
So yeah, that day of infamy, it wasn't just an attack, it was the catalyst. It was the exact moment that slammed one door shut on American history and violently threw open another. And here you have it, the immediate, undeniable consequence. For years, the U.S. had been really committed to its policy of isolationism, determined to stay out of the war raging across the globe. But with this single act, that policy was shattered, just gone. There was no going back. The nation was plunged into World War II. And that decision wasn't made over weeks, it was made in a matter of hours. But you know, a nation's story isn't just defined by what happens to it, but by how it responds. And that response shifted the whole narrative from one of just, well, reacting, to one of powerful, unwavering resolve. What's so fascinating here is the pivot this shows. On the left, you see the wound, a nation attacked, totally reeling in shock. But on the right, you see that pain being forged into something brand new, resolve. And this wasn't just a feeling, it was a hardcore commitment to an all-out industrial and military mobilization, all unified by one single promise. And this was the other side of Roosevelt's message. The key word here is inevitable. I mean, think about that. This wasn't framed as a hope or a prayer, it was presented as a certainty. It was both a promise to the American people and, let's be honest, a stark warning to its enemies. The final outcome was already decided. So this brings us to our final section, the ultimate outcome. Because every single action has a consequence, and the consequence of mobilizing an entire nation for an inevitable triumph was, well, it was nothing short of world-changing. So, after all the dust settled, after that triumph was finally gained, what was the long-term result for the United States? What did this massive global conflict ultimately forge? This is the ultimate consequence. While Europe and Asia were left absolutely devastated, American industry, protected by two oceans, had just boomed. It mass-produced the tools of victory, which lifted the country out of the Great Depression and created an economic powerhouse unlike anything the world had ever seen. The U.S. didn't just win the war, it emerged as the world's creditor, its leading manufacturer, and its new dominant superpower. So right here, we have the entire arc in one shot. It's a clear three-act story. It starts with the catalyst, the shocking attack on Pearl Harbor. That leads to the response, a national mobilization completely fueled by a promise of victory. And that response leads directly to the ultimate consequence, America's ascent to superpower status. It's a direct line from infamy to global influence. Which really leaves us with this one powerful question. How does a nation's darkest day end up forging its future? It makes you wonder what other pivotal moments in history, born from some kind of crisis, have unexpectedly shaped the world we all live in today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.